Divider.
It is 6.
And what was it?
Rise, pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
6 o'clock on Tuesday, January 24th, meeting in the Wahoo Public Library. Announcement of open meetings acts on the wall. Roll call.
Stuart Creechy.
Here.
Carl Warford.
Here.
Ryan Diaz.
Here.
Chris Raffle.
Here.
Patrick Nagel.
Here.
Shane Smith.
The purposes of this public hearing is to present the 24-25 budget and the proposed tax levy rate for 24 property taxes. Melissa.
Okay, so in your packet is this information, including a summary, narrative, a description of each fund, a summary sheet of our expenditures and revenues, and then details. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about this. But this is not what I have prepared for a presentation. So if you have any specific questions, please interject or holler or say, stop doing what you're doing. I have no questions about this. So, I kind of formatted this based off of what I presented last year, so I'll try to go through this fairly quickly. What's that?
Oh.
Gotcha. So, I really just wanted to cover, and this is, I know you know what we do and who we serve, but I'm hoping that there are some people online that are interested in understanding all of this as well. So I'll try to breeze through this fairly quickly. Overall, from a public safety standpoint, we have 24-hour police, fire, and EMS. Our fire and EMS, when you see that Wahoo Plus, it means that we're serving people outside of our city limits. Our building inspection and zoning administration serves Wahoo plus the 1 mile ETJ. We support the 3 core drug task force. There's no financial obligation, but we do all of their, receive all of the revenue and pay all of their bills for them and present reports to them. On the public works side, we have streets, our stormwater system, and then our cemetery, which serves beyond our boundaries. Culture and recreation. These categories are kind of the way that we report our expenditures on our state budget document, so that's why I'm grouping them this way. Our library, parks and recreation, as well as our senior services are all provided to those, our Wahoo residents as well as those beyond. On the community development side, we have tax increment financing, we support our economic development office. We have various development projects like housing subdivisions and projects like that. Capital projects with the half-cent sales tax of Chestnut Street, our park and recreation, aquatic center, which all serve beyond the borders of Wahoo. On the general government, we have City Hall, Mayor and Council, and support functions for the city departments, and then debt service. We support the various functions of government, whether it's street projects or TIF or utility projects, and the same with loans that we have for projects. And we've used USDA rural development as well as local borrowing. Our Keno is a miscellaneous fund, and that is the expenditures of those monies are for community betterment, which typically reach beyond Wahoo. On our operating expenses, when I categorize operating, I include payroll and benefits, insurance, materials and supplies, professional services, and then maintenance of our equipment, vehicles, computers, and basic building maintenance. The chart here on the right, I lined up, this chart is from last year's budget. So this, the red corresponds with the red, and the blue corresponds with the blue, and the yellow is the new year, the new budget year. And I put this in here so you can see that we stated in public safety we were going to, this was the year before's actual estimated, this was what we budgeted. This was, it's kind of the same way here. You can see that you just follow these through, you'll see that what we said we were going to do, we actually did. Some of the changes that you'll see here for our upcoming fiscal year in public safety on the operating side, I have included a substantial pay adjustment, or I guess I'd call it substantial pay adjustment for our law enforcement. We are roughly $3 an hour behind our peer communities in that department, so we are actually losing an officer to the county who's paying an upwards of $3 an hour more than we are. So that's why you see that, primarily see the jump in public safety on the operations side. Culture and recreation, I know the finance committee had conversations with Kevin. On the payroll side, you're starting to see the implementation of the minimum wage changes in the state, and if we're gonna be able to hire anyone, we have to pay, we're not obligated by the state to pay minimum wage, but from a competitive standpoint, we have to pay minimum wage, so. On the capital expenditure side, this is again 23-24, and then 24-25 improvements to real property. Community development really encompasses not only the housing developments that we have supported, which is why you see this so high. You know, we are taking on those expenditures and we're bonding for them, we borrowed for them, we're paying for the installation, and then we assess against the property. And then this also includes the half-cent sales tax for capital improvements that primarily go for park and recreation. I don't know if you have any questions. If you have any questions on any of these, stop me, I'll answer. Other capital outlay, this includes radios and equipment, vehicles, computers, furniture, those kinds of things. You'll see here in public safety we have a significant jump, but that's because we have not only the replacement of our ambulance from the insurance proceeds, but also the down payment on the fire truck. So that's kind of skewed those numbers. This is a summary of our debt service on our bonds, and I have this broke out by the way, the revenues that we use to pay for them. So we have 3 issues that are funded with general obligation property tax, which includes the GO portion of North Highlands subdivision, the GO portion of the Wilmer Ridge subdivision, and then Chestnut Street and 23rd Street. We have those projects that were funded by TIF revenue, which includes J Road by Sid Dillons and 12th Street by Omaha Steel. We have the debt that's funded with special assessment collections, which is North Highlands and Wilmer Ridge, and the debt that's funded with the half-cent sales tax for Chestnut Street, and then those debt items that are funded by the utilities. So bonded debt, we have a total of right at $13 million as the principal beginning balance for this upcoming fiscal year. We also have debt service other borrowings, which include capital improvements at Hackberry, the ball field lease payment for the construction of fields 5 and 6, as well as the field 5 lighting payment. Those are funded with a half-cent sales tax for capital improvements. Funded with GO property tax are the lease payments or that go to fund the USDA loan payments for the library as well as the West Service Center. And then we receive a donation of $10,000 from the Community Foundation each year for the ball field lighting. So total we have about $15.5 million worth of debt.
Which in comparison is not much.
It is not much. Yes.
Can you go?
Yep. It is. Yep. Is that, you good?
Yep.
Okay.
Good, thanks.
So where does our money come from? We have a restricted funds that are defined in state statute as those funds that kind of come from a state authorization or allocation, which include property tax, highway allocation, motor vehicle fees, municipal equalization, motor vehicle tax, local option sales tax, and then all of our other revenues, which the majority are generated locally from our occupation tax, our fees and services, fees for services, Keno, the grants that we get, TIF revenue. And so I took the various, the years and kind of, I wanted to do a visualization of comparison. So we have our restricted funds, which are in this yellow. We have our local revenue, which is in the red. we have the grant revenue, and then interfund transfers. In 22-23, our actual was 16.4 million in revenue, but we did have a very big local borrowing of, to fund some of the construction of the infrastructures for North Highlands. This was our budget for last year, the year that we're currently in, and this is what I estimate to be our actual. So we're at, whoops, I'm not going the right way. Here it is. So you see, we estimate, or we budgeted roughly 10.2 million. Our actual is 10.3 million. Going into 24-25, this is the split, again, with quite a bit of local revenue and restricted funds at so 12.7 million total.
Yeah, the interfund transfers would be,
So we have fund in the description, you'll see in this document, Chris, there's Fund 117.
right?
That is the 1% local option sales tax that we take in, and we bring that into that fund, and then every month, as we per the budget,
Gotcha.
I transfer to the various, so I transfer to Park and Rec, I transfer to Street, and that's
From
it,
that.
right.
Gotcha.
So it's not, it is an income in Fund 117, and then it comes in as a transfer in the other departments that I transfer to.
Very good. Thank you.
Restricted funds growth, and this is gonna be the last year, as far as I can tell, that we'll have this restricted funds, limitation. It tended to go away next year with the changes that were brought in this last special session. We're allowed to increase those restricted funds by 2.5% plus 1%, plus our allowable growth if it's over 2.5. So if our allowable growth is 3, we get an extra half, then plus the 1 if you approve it by 75%. This has always been a difficult concept for me to explain for whatever reason. I just know that if it's important to increase our base every year so that even if we don't need it this year, we would still have it available for us to use in the future. Something came up. So items included in this year's budget, we are continuing our vehicle replacement allocations for police, streets, and parks, as well as then the money for the fire engine. We have some equipment replacement upgrades. We have new chairs in the budget finally for the city hall meeting room. I hear about that all the time. We have some replacement computers for city hall staff. Our share of the city's new vehicle, the police department equipment, street department equipment, cemetery mower, parks equipment, fire equipment, communication equipment. And we've tried really hard to keep these allocations kind of in a level amount every year for each department. They do have some specific requests, but I would hope you know as well as I know that our departments are very stingy in when they replace their equipment. They want to find a really good deal and they want to do it when they need to, right? They want to get everything that they can out of the piece of equipment that they have, and I commend them for that. So we try to continue an allocation every year, even if it doesn't get fully spent.
And that's where sort of thing basically on the left side had been planned, had some allocations. That's not all coming out this year. That's all coming out from, there's cash that was already there.
Right. Well, it is coming, there's
It's
an
being paid
extra
for.
$50,000 for the police department that's going into their vehicle replacement fund. So they will have the ability, whenever they need a vehicle, even if it's more than $50,000 in this year, to be able to have the funds to make that replacement. The same way with the street department. They have some left over from this last year. So, and that's why I encourage them to come to the council to present and ask for your permission to make a purchase of a piece of equipment. So,
Melissa,
that
may
makes sense.
I?
Yes.
interject something? I just want to point out that there's no equipment upgrades for the library because the library foundation covered all of the costs this past year for new computers for not only staff, but the public use computers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Which was
You're the treasurer, Ryan.
17,000.
That's where I was
It
gonna
was
say.
around 17,000, I
Yeah.
believe, yes.
Again, these are some similar each year where we've been working to get our storm sewer televised, and I know you've seen Joe out working on the storm sewer, replacing curb inlets and rebuilding boxes. We have an allocation of $500,000 for street maintenance and resurfacing. We do crack sealing every year. We have some engineering for downtown improvements, and we have $500,000 for downtown improvements out of the half-cent sales tax for street improvements. Again, these are all items, aside from the crack sealing and the storm sewer televising, these are all the items that I would bring directly to you for your approval of a specific project, spending some of these allocations. I think Denise has told me they have one HVAC unit that's left to replace here at the library, so that's needed. We have $135,000 for expenditure of our streetlight grant, as well as streetlights in Wilma Ridge and North Highlands Phase 2. The fire department is intending to spend their $50,000 for their fire training center down at the wastewater treatment plant. And then in October, our Manners Trust money is actually, the trust has reached its life of 10 years, so that money is going to be coming in, and I have that allocated. Again, it will take your approval to move forward with any project, but allocated to be spent on a public safety building improvement. Other allocations, we allocate $685,000 of direct support for parks and recreation. We have $500,000 in the outstanding amount of work for the North Highlands Phase 2. That will be then turned around and be assessed to the property. I've included a comprehensive plan update. We provide $90,000 worth of support for the Economic Development Office, and then there's this $385,000 replacement of the rescue squad, which is all being funded except for our deductible of $10,000 by insurance. On staffing and benefits side, the big one is the 7% increase in law enforcement wages to be comparable with peer communities. And then they would still be eligible for the COLA. We are changing, which is on the agenda, the police records clerk position from part-time to full-time. When I do the budgeting for staffing, I budget a step increase for all eligible employees for the entire year. It's only given if it's merited and on the anniversary date. So an employee might have an anniversary date of May, but I have the step in there for the entire budget. Gives us a little bit of flexibility. And then 3% cost of living, and I've included a 10% increase in insurance benefit costs. I have heard that we are going to be well under that, so that makes me happy.
Sure, absolutely.
I know this is small, but this is a listing of the projects that Kevin has proposed to be used for the half-cent sales tax. For the most part, I have included, we've made allocations throughout the year of $100,000 to be used for public safety or city hall updates. We do have some money set aside to use if we want to start that process. If you have any questions on these projects, I can try and answer them. I know when Kevin presented the final plan, design sets for Highlands Park of $75,000. That was an estimate that he received, and I think we were all a little shocked by that. But again, I go back to the statement I made before. If you know Kevin, you know that he will work hard to get every penny out of whatever he spends for a final design set for that park. This is just a kind of shows it looks to me like a messy heartbeat, right? But this is our local option sales tax, and you can see this is January of 2019, and we are on a steady growth trajectory. And this is one way to look at that. This is another way, and this is a graphic that I put together and submitted to several senators when they were talking about taking a portion of the city's local option sales tax. You can see that our sales tax growth is greater than 1% every year. And in the legislative session, they were talking about capping our growth at 1%. So I created this, and I'd be happy to share it with you directly by email if you want, but this is really our story. This is when the sales tax exemption on ag parts went into effect. This is when the Highway 7792 Expressway opened, so there was very little difference in the impact of those. This is when online sales tax collections went into effect. This is when our Chestnut Street collection began. And this, we can see the local option sales tax increasing due to the housing development activities that are happening, just by the way that you can see the months as they come in. I'm nearly 99% certain that's where it's coming from. On our property tax request ask, this is a graphic again of our ask, a total dollar amount. Our ask for this year is going from $2,160,571 to $2,308,011. A portion of that is due to the increase in debt service that we have, and I'd say another portion of that is due to the raise in the police department. This is assessed value, and you can see here this is other than growth, which means this is just increased due to market. This growth factor, and you can see again from 4.5 million in growth in 2003 to 11.9 million growth in 2004, which is directly a result of the housing development. And our tax levy rate has fluctuated some, but we have been on the downward trajectory. Our property tax rate will be going up about half of a cent. I don't know if you have any questions on that.
That's a good graph. That's a nice one to be able to say we're, granted valuations are up.
Right, yes.
But that's still a nice one to be able to show.
This is the notice of budget hearing and summary that was put in the newspaper, and these facts that I list here on the bottom are the same facts that I had to describe specifically at the joint public hearing. And this operating budget one is always a little deceiving to me, just by the percentage of change. Because there's no place in the operating budget to pull out what you're spending in capital. So capital fluctuates a lot from year to year. And then this is the property tax resolution that you're going to be asked to consider later on in our regular meeting. I guess this lays out per statute all of the things that are supposed to be included in our property tax resolution. This is what was presented at the joint public hearing. These are listing of the facts that had to be in that published notice, that have to be in our property tax rate resolution, and had to be presented at the joint public hearing. And again, some of them are fine, but I would say this operating budget figure is very deceptive. And last, this is the graphic that I have put together for several years, or the last 3 or 4 years. This is the 2023-24 budget, and you'll see for a home valued at $250,000, the total amount per month that folks pay here in town is $106.41. I took that same property of $250,000 and I figured if you go back to this chart that shows property value increase and growth, I just took that property tax increase and figured out the percentage and grew my $250,000 home by that percentage. It's roughly $260,000. And so the tax goes to $112 per month versus the 106. Okay. So now, not everyone has a home valued at $260,000, but I did ask Rhonda today for the average home value, and she said the average home value in Wahoo was $187,614. And the median home value is $159,856. So the number that I'm presenting here is less than the average home value, and I still think for $112, like I've always said, I pay more than that in my Netflix and my cable subscriptions. So the council next steps then would be to authorize that additional 1% increase in restricted funds budget, then an action to approve the budget as it's presented, and an action to approve the property tax levy resolution. If you have questions or you want to make a change to the budget presented, I would ask that you still take an action to approve some kind of budget, because it needs to be filed with the state by September 30th, which is Monday. And our levy resolution has to be filed with the county clerk by the 15th. So we do have one meeting in between now and then, if there's some kind of change that you want to make. Now, if you have questions, that's all I have. I can.
The mix of people last night was kind of unique, but any legitimate questions or just concerns or?
So there was, Stuart was there as the representative of the council. There was an individual, Dennis Fouillon, running for legislature, Jill Reese as a county supervisor, and then one member of the public. A member of the public from here in Wahoo didn't speak. Jill Reese stood up and wanted to know if the city had ever considered opening a public recycling center. So
I think we told him he's better served with the county.
yes, and I said, well, has the county ever thought about opening a public recycling center? It was an interesting kind of social experiment for me, because this is the third joint public hearing that I participated in. The first one, which was up at the school, we probably had over 100, would you say? That was fair. And there was lots of complaints about property tax valuations. There was even people from outside of the county complaining about the property tax valuations in Saunders County. The next year, they had it up at the courthouse, and there was maybe 40 people there. And I was intrigued by this because Wahoo was the only one in Saunders County that had to participate this year. So I consider the pink postcard as a direct invitation to every single person here in Wahoo. There was 2,201 invitations sent out, and we got one member of the public who chose to participate. So I don't know, is it because there's such great trust in you guys and the staff, or is there apathy about what we're doing? Was it a bad day? Was it, I don't know.
I think people are learning that that's not the place to argue your property valuation. So maybe there's been a little bit of learning along
Maybe
the
so,
way.
yes.
That's a good point, it's not the place for property valuation discussion.
Maybe you talked to other council members, and I missed the last finance committee meeting, but at one time we thought we might not even have a pink card hearing. But we bumped a couple things up. The way I feel about it is we could have dropped a lot of things, but if we're gonna get cut next year and caps and different things, whatever the legislatures do, I didn't think we should.
Yeah, right now, the way the past legislation stands, we have a 0% increase other than real growth. So there is a cost of living factor that is included in that, but there's some controversy about how that language was intended and how it's applied. The way it's written is that if you have your if we have a growth of 5%, we are allowed to increase our property dollar tax ask by 5%. But then there's the word product, the product of your real growth and the slice factor, which is the CPI for that they're referencing. If the slice factor is 0, product means multiply, so you have your growth times the slice factor, which is 0, you're gonna get nothing. Basically, that's the way it's written right now. So there's a lot of conversation about some legislation in the spring to clean that up. But I really don't think that there's gonna be much success at moving away from that 0% growth. Sorry, 0% increase other than the real growth, right? So in this year's instance, you saw we had $11 million in real growth. We could take our, yeah, they have a formula, but that's the only thing that we can collect the property tax on, over and above what we collected in the past.
I don't expect it here, but I just think if there was a community roughly the same size, and something happened and business goes down, you lost some jobs, you didn't grow, you actually lose some people, or, you know, whatever it is. Like, I can't help but think what a terrible like concept that is. You still have employees that are gonna expect to be paid, so where do you start cutting? Like, if you can cut, then you were fat to begin with. At no point is that how that works. It just floors me that they not understand the concept that it doesn't work that way. But anyway,
Well, it's not saying if your growth goes down, your budget has to go way down, does it? You just don't get an increase in it at all. Is that
Right, if
what it
you
is?
have no growth, which there are some communities in Nebraska that
Like
don't
Carl's
have.
situation, say Omaha Steel closed down and we actually show all negative, we go back down in growth.
But it's growth, it's not market value, it's growth, right? So growth meaning new homes, new construction, new businesses, new improvements. It's not, if we would have a housing crash here and the value of our properties all decrease, right? According to
2008 again.
Right, according to the way I interpret this is that our property tax ask could still be the same. So which means that our levy then would have to go, our levy rate would have to go up to be able to, right? We would still be under the 45-cent lid for the +5 restriction, but it's interesting, I guess. Any other questions? I guess you were right, Christine.
I knew it. Half an hour. That was my guess.
So we would need a motion to close the public hearing, I guess, Jerry.
I don't think anybody else will show up.
It's a little late,
I
yeah.
don't think so.
Yeah.
Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
go ahead.
A motion to second, to close the public hearing for the budget. Roll call.
Creachy,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Warford.
Yes.
Okay, take a half hour break.
Turn off the camera.